Hey everybody, it's me, Britney Spears, coming to you live from hell.
Hi, I'm Britney Spears,
I'm Whitney Houston.
coming to you live from hell.
On the last episode, we talked about the industry, some of the pains in it, and how to overcome them. We went into getting started on a game, researching it. I started to break down the entire UI, which was a painstaking, difficult process. And then we made a really complicated core loop, which I may go over in this episode. In this episode, I'll be reading the reviews of the app very thoroughly, pushing myself to see if I can read every single reviews, and we'll be talking about the usefulness of doing research on a product. I go into theme making, which I dig deep and try to come up with as many themes that I could possibly come up with. We talk a little bit about how critical that is or not. And then I hit a wall where I decide to go and talk to a life coach of mine that I've been seeing for about 3 years. His name is Dan Ross, and I include that session, unveils some of the talkings and some of the lessons that I go into on how to stay motivated in the gaming industry. So stay tuned to find out if I can come up with a design that's as good or better than Adventure Communists. On the last episode, Joseph and I left off looking at Adventure Communist statistics. We were using Sensor Tower to do that. And this whole episode is about me trying to figure out if I can make a game better or as good as Adventure Communists. So that was just me trying to learn more about it. What I did next was I used Sensor Tower again to read all of the reviews in about Adventure Communists, as many as I could, as far back as it went. So this isn't something that I do all the time, but I will do it if it's a very, very serious project. So for example, if I was working at a company or we're working on a game that could cost $1, $2 to $3 million to make, what am I willing to do to make sure that I'm doing my best work? And something that I picked up along the lines, the place where I heard it the best, which I've done several different versions of it, but the place that I found it the best was in an audiobook called Excuses Be Gone by Wayne Dyer. And in it, somewhere along the lines, he talks about making a list of things that you are unwilling to do in order to accomplish your dream. What you're supposed to do is write down this big list of things that you say that you're unwilling to do. And keep going and going and going and going and going. And then at the end of it, you erase it all and then crumple up the paper and leave it on the wall somewhere for you to see. What's special about that is, although not useful for everybody, there's plenty of people out there who are successful without this. In fact, there's probably more people who are successful in the world that haven't done this than there are people that have. I mean, if you think about guys like Post Malone or Iggy Pop or Elon Musk or, anyone that you may find successful, you could ask yourself, well, did they sit around writing lists and doing silly exercises like this? The answer may be no, and likely is no, but it doesn't hurt. Because when it comes to the gaming industry and trying to make an app, what is it that you are unwilling to do in order to accomplish the vision? And if you're passionate enough, if you're enthusiastic enough, then the answer should be nothing. And so although I am just simply reading all the reviews of the game, you'll see that it's actually really painstaking and it's very, very hard to do because it's just a pain in the ass, to be quite honest. Some companies do it, and some companies say that's one thing that they do all the time. Now, how useful is it is questionable. Are the users correct on their feedback? Are the reviews the best place to look? I think it's debatable on whether if they are or not. Sometimes users just complain about the obvious. Can you yield any good information from reading all of the reviews about a competitor? I don't think the question is really a good one. The answer is maybe. The true question is, are you willing to do whatever you feel that you need to do to accomplish what you think you'd like to accomplish. I mean, whether your idea comes to fruition or not, can you honestly say that you're willing to do whatever it is that you feel is necessary to accomplish this? May that be a small little idle game or a really big deal multi-million dollar shooter game, or may that be your own very book that you've always wanted to write. What is it that you think you're unwilling to do, and then erase that from your list? So this section about reading reviews, although kind of simple, and you'll see it now, what the biggest lesson from it that I could give to you is it's not necessarily reading reviews is something that I do as a game designer in the industry that helps me be successful. It's my willingness to do whatever it takes that I think will lead me to the conclusion that I need to come to. So let's check it out. So you can see I have Sensor Tower open, and I'm on page 1 of 196. It's selected all countries, all reviews, and I believe I changed the setting to be all English, or translate to all English. Yeah, there we go. On the right-hand side, we have a Dropbox paper that says Adventure Communist Review Notes. I have a positive, a negative, and a miss section, meaning negative reviews, positive reviews, and meaning exactly what it means, like positive reviews, negative reviews, or just miscellaneous. And what I do here is I show you what it looks like to just go through one full page, just to give you an idea of the time that it takes to do one page. And I fast forward all the rest. So if it feels slow, just be patient. As soon as I push next page, I fast forward the whole process for you. I was so happy when I was done with those reviews because reading them was really hard. Probably harder than any task that I did for this entire little experiment. Mostly because there's no storyline to these reviews. Reading reviews for hours upon hours upon hours for multiple days felt like forever. I mean, when it was done, when I look back on the footage, doesn't look too bad, but it was probably one of the harder things I decided to try to do. It was just awful experience going back to it. The most exciting part about reading reviews was seeing the game crash in backwards time, because people would be like, the game crashed. And then it'd be like, the game crashed, the game crashed, the game crashed, it's crashing. And then the reviews would be like, oh, I love the update, or something like that. So you'd see it backwards. So like, if you read it forward, it'd be like, new update. And then people would be like, oh, the game crashed. And then it would slowly fix. So I was like reading their whole evolution of updates backwards. And kind of seeing, you know, at least getting a beat for how often they would do updates, or how often they would crash, or what people would say and what people would not say. And I learned a ton from that experience. Where I finished reading the reviews was in a mall setting. So I switched over immediately to another task, which was perfect, which was theme making. Theme making, as simple as it sounds, is actually really important. For example, if we're going to make a game, and that game is going to be, and I say, hey, I go up to like a regular, you know, employee, someone at a QA, and I say, hey, look, he's brand new, he's at a QA. Let's give this guy something super easy to do, because it doesn't take a lot for someone to think of themes. That's the general consensus of coming up with themes. Anyone can do it. A 12-year-old could do it. An art director could do it. An engineer could do it. A CEO could do it. Someone from QA could do it. It's generally known as like content design. But if you're coming up with a theme for a game, you pretty much decided everything about it. For example, if we were making a shooter game and I say the theme is going to be like sci-fi, it could change the way that characters jump and they could float more. It changes the entire art direction. It changes the entire budget. It changes everything. So although themes are very simple, they're very, very critical. When you're thinking about a theme for a game, especially idle games, because that's what everyone's basically doing, they're trying to think about what will fit in this same space. Because there's idle games that look like bees, hives, then there's like packages, and then there's like adventure communists, right? And there's theme parks, and there's everything in between. And you would think that if you found the perfect theme, that you would have a way to get in. At least that's the idea. Sometimes we think that if it's in our head, it's not right. So in this particular thing, you can see that I'm taking into consideration that everything that I'm thinking is potentially really good. And I'm not really questioning it. I'm just kind of letting it flow. I'm opening myself up pretty wide. I mean, if I hear a bike ride by, I write the word bike. One of the very few precious viewers of my videos asked, can you explain that thing? And it's really not that hard to explain once you understand it. And I'll speak to a little bit and maybe shoot some B-roll on it as I look at it now. But essentially what there is there's 5 tabs in Venture Communist. What I'm calling tab A, B, C, D, and E. Now to understand a Venture Communist, you would pretty much just need to understand Adventure Capitalist. It's one scroll, one area that scrolls down. You unlock one row and you unlock the next row and you unlock the next row. So Adventure Communist, very easily put, is essentially that game with 5 tabs. There's 5 unique tabs, and each tab is considered an industry. And it doesn't matter what they are, it just matters that they're there. So I'm calling it tab A, B, C, D, and E. And you can see these little unlock lines in black that represent each tab unlocks the other tab. And underneath A is A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, and A6, and A7, and so on. Now, to understand how this works, you need to know that A7 produces A6, and A6 produces A5, and A5 produces A4, and A3, A2, A1 produces A. And if you have enough A, unlocks B. So what this is a massive spread out of how the entire game works. So all these lines are actually drawing and pulling from different pools. So let's take quests, for example. If you look at quests, there are 3 green lines coming off the claim reward. One points at Y, which stands for science or research, meaning when I collect a reward, I will get the science. When I claim the reward, I will go forward in my quest bar, and also I will have a chance to get a card. And the line goes to cards. And I have 3 cards, for example. And I have a yellow card, a purple card, and a red card. And these stand for different bonuses that are being paid out. Things like chance, power, trade, a bonus, discount, cards, science, things like that. And most of these cards do the exact same thing. It's just that each card goes for a unique cell. So for example, every single cell, may that be B3, C2, A1, or D6, all have a unique card that benefits it. Down towards the bottom, you can see our big areas that represent things that I just found important, things that make the game work. Like it has very clear collect badges. It has an upgrade your card button. It has really clear collect science. It has a really clear spend animation. It has clear cost information to let you know how much things cost. It has a really clear gaining animation, a really clear bonus animation. Lots of room for big prices and names. A manual press, so you have to manually collect sometimes, and it has clearly locked. I felt that these were some of the most critical elements of the game and reason why it functioned. And one of the hardest ones is a secretly hard, really hard one to change, is probably the lots of room for price and name. I knew that was going to be a problem from the beginning because the design is very text heavy, and it's very nice to have all that room. And to escape text heavy games and go more visual, you lose all those really important elements. So that was something that I knew I'd probably have a challenge later. Over here on the right is an exact copy of their huge store. I have something called a Fuck Yeah Pack as a joke, the special offer for your mom only. It's ending in a day, so you better get it soon. We have featured researchers, we have their research capsules, their time warps, their gold packs, and their science. Everything about this is exactly like the game, except I took it and I spread it out so I can see it. And I wanted to be really close to it. I didn't want it to be over there. I wanted it to be right here in my face. I wanted to eat with it, to sleep with it. I wanted it to be the biggest thing in my room, along with the flashcards in my pockets and everything that I was learning, because I'm really trying to do this. This isn't a joke, right? This isn't like something I'm just kind of having fun with on the side. This was like a full-time endeavor that I hoped to crack, because these games are extremely valuable to customers and they create wonderful businesses that make lots of people happy, and that's something I'm interested in. I'm interested in working in companies like that. I'm interested in working on products like that. So how serious am I willing to take this? What am I not willing to do? Am I unwilling to create one of the most complicated core loops that people have ever seen for such a little game and hang it on my wall 4 feet wide, 4 feet tall? No, I'm not. And essentially at this point in time, looking back on me, looking at it now, I could see how well this helped me, and I'm glad I did it. So something happened to me during this particular video creation. I was going through a lot. I mean, it was really hot during this time. It was probably one of the hottest summers that I ever remembered. I just got done moving back into my mom's house. I just got done working out of that country house before and moving out of my apartment before that. And there's just a lot going on. So I was faced with a tremendous amount of, I don't know really. I was basically just burning out. So what I decided to do, it was just stop. And I hit up a life coach of mine. His name is Dan Ross, and I've had sessions with him for like the last 3 years, off and on. And he is a hypnosis life coach, all kinds of stuff. But he works with people who are dealing with weight loss issues, people who want to quit smoking, people who are dealing with ailments that they want to have a different perspective on. He is a really well-trained life coach who I agree with tremendously. We get along really well. And he's been helping me in my career and personal life throughout the years to uncover different ways of thinking when I needed it. And I included a session that I had with him during the process of this game. And I'd like to end this video by sharing it with you. And this is the session that I had with a life coach on how to stay more focused and understand my special gift to the world in video game design. The last couple weeks, since we last spoken, I've thought about how I want to make music. I've thought about how I want to be a writer. I've thought about how I want to have a family. I've thought about how I want to live a great life. And then I'm also in constant meeting about game design. I'm in constant requests for game design. And sometimes I'll feel really pumped about it. And then other times I feel extremely depressed about it. So this is something that's been happening to me over this last couple of days. But I've also been struggling with trying to quit smoking.
Okay.
So I don't want to give it all, like, I can't really trust myself too much. So I get hit up by people, will you work on this game? Will you figure out these problems? And it just goes and goes. And sometimes I feel like I'm working with people who don't know a lot. And I feel like I have to learn a lot. And I feel saddened by the industry. I feel overwhelmed by it, as if like there's so much people are asking so much, and there's just no way I can deliver because they just don't understand the process. Like working with, upper management kind of thing. So
is this in your erstwhile company, or is this these are just random people making a request of you?
Well, this is just within normal requests. I feel agitated in game design. I feel agitated by it, and free to play has been something really hard for me over the last, I've been working on it for so long that I need to perform, right? And I want to perform. I'll be on a jog and I'll start thinking about game design and I'll be really on fire. And then I'll get into a meeting and I'll be working with people and they'll be talking about like their ideas and it'll sound kind of wrong and the meeting will wrap up fast and then I'll realize I'll have this tremendous amount of work to do, and I'll feel like, man, this is gonna be hard to do. Like I'm supposed to be thinking about my truth, right? The game design is so demanding for me. It's such a big part of my life that it's all consuming sometimes, and I feel overwhelmed by it or annoyed by it, and then I'll feel pumped by it, right? I'll feel like this is great. Like I'm gonna be the best game designer in the world. I want to be. I once performed with other games at my peak. Days upon days upon days would go by, and I wouldn't think about what's my passion, what's my life. Am I getting old? Am I too young? Where should I live? What should I do? Are they annoying? Am I annoying? I wouldn't think about any of that.
Well, if you're in the zone, that kind of tells you it's probably something you're passionate about, right? If you're in that zone.
If I'm in the zone, yeah.
Yeah. So all of these requests, this is again in the context of the startup that you're doing now.
Yeah.
Okay. And who are these? Because I thought you only have one other person. So who are these other people? That are
So
making
I'm
requests?
working with Joseph Kim. Joseph is my partner and friend.
Yeah.
And then we will work with other studios, miscellaneous people, guys like a guy named Jeff Witt.
This is consulting.
This is consulting and also
Okay.
collaborating. So we'll reach out to people for advice and talk about what we should work on. And then we'll come up with ideas on what we should work on. And then it's my job to flush those things out to
Okay.
see if they'll be a worthwhile move. And as a founder and as a designer, it's a lot of pressure for me to try to figure these things out because I have to go from a very limited amount of thinking to a very, very educated amount of thinking as fast as possible. And it requires me to research a ton of product. It requires me to make a lot of decisions, a lot of design decisions. And I feel that there's a lot being said. And then I feel like some sort of sloth, some sort of depression, some sort of weight where I'm like, this is fucking nuts. Like the order, like the way in which I'll have to work to be successful needs to be so insane. Like I'll need to be such a high performer to try to do well. It's almost like I'm starting at square one. Like when I first started design, I had to work extremely hard.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is extremism is one.
Mhm.
I'll explain what that is, and internal conflict is two. We've talked about conflicts before.
Yeah.
I don't think we've talked a lot about extremism. So I'll use the weight loss example because this comes up in every weight loss program. So in weight loss program, when often people they walk past the mirror in my hallway and then are at home, right, and they're like, "Holy shit, what happened to me?" Right? Where'd all this fat come from?
Yeah.
That's it. Tomorrow I'm starting a diet. Yeah, I'm throwing away everything in the house, and we get up at 5 in the morning. I'm going to go for a 10-mile run. I haven't run in 20 years, right? They're running along. They're driving themselves crazy. They have kale shake for breakfast, leftover kale shake for lunch. It tastes horrible, but they have it. This goes on for a couple days, and they're like, I can't do it. And so that's the pendulum swinging hard one way, and then the pendulum swings hard the other way. So they get to their wit's end because they can't handle the extremeness of it. They're not getting the nutrition they need. They're pushing their body too hard. They're not doing something in a sustainable way. And so like, oh, well, just one little bowl of ice cream, that'll be fine, right? I deserve it. I've done well this week.
Mm.
And next thing you know, the whole carton's gone. They're like, well, shit, that diet went out the window. Screw it,
Yeah.
I don't feel good about myself, but being overweight, but at least I can, at least I can have what I want to eat if I just say screw it, right?
Yeah.
So, this sort of fits and starts for you. That's probably part of it. Is this sort of extreme? It's either 100% or it's off,
Yeah.
right? So part of you is just working. I got to be the best. I got to do it. And then I think that freedom part of you is like, well, screw it. Why am I working so hard? And whatever it is that kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that pendulum too, right? So I think if you want to do this, it has to be done. I mean, I know startups are intense, right?
Yeah.
You're choosing to do another startup. So some of that's going to come with the territory. But this is not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? So I think you have to do it in a way like we discussed before, where you still take care of yourself. You work, reasonable hours unless you're at the end of a sprint or something. And, you maybe still find some time to pick up the guitar because who knows, maybe that can become part of the creativity. Your game might have some Paul Layden music in it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a Paul Layden poem pops up in between levels or something, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
So that's part of it. Now there's probably something deeper driving that, right? Because you said, it's pointing towards a belief that I have to be this perfect, amazing, I don't remember your words, but the reality is I think plenty of great video games were made by people who are mediocre. Not that you're mediocre, but, all I'm pointing to is that maybe this can be done in a sustainable way. So you don't one day just throw up your hands and say screw it.
Right.
So, but the question is, what is the belief that's in there that says that I have to be I don't remember your wording.
Well, I'm associating myself with past performances. So
Associating or comparing?
I'm comparing. Comparing. And I want to bring to my team some of the most elite thinking. And there's a person whom I have been and can be that I don't feel all the way lately, right? Like, I don't feel that all the way sometimes. So the belief is that I was and am at times able to think and perform at such an elite level, and then sometimes I'm just not. So I kind of want to be in the state of where I believe I can do this, and I believe that it's possible, and that even if the days were long, or even if there wasn't balance, or even if people were making requests that were really hard, and even if I knew that the meeting that I was in was talking about things that I think are going to go wrong and I'm going to have to figure it out, all of the normal things of the industry, even if they were there, at some point I was able to digest that and to process that and actually flow with it. And I guess the belief is that I'm not able to step into that person right now as much as I need to. I'm not able to step into the Paul who needs to design great work. And I fall out of excitement. I fall out of rhythm. I've been doing this forever. It feels like I start feeling that way. I've been doing this forever. Same shit, same thing. How can I get better? How can I design another hit game? How can I design a great product for us? And then, crap, here comes another meeting, another weekend gone, another late night trying to figure this out, right?
Again, it's a conflict again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so let's double check. So I've talked about ecology before, right? So ecology is the study of consequences. So yeah, in the real world, when you dump poison in the lake, it kills the fish, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say that I could wave the magic wand and give you that elite performance at whatever level you want for as long as you want. What's the downside to that potentially?
Maybe I didn't earn it, or I didn't give it to myself, or I didn't have the tools to just give it to myself. It was given to me by your magic wand of some wave. The downside of the elite performance, I'm not sure.
Well, just practically, right? So often, people who work long hours, their other parts of their life suffer. Now, all I'm saying is if you want to do that, that has to be okay.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's some people that want, I think we talked about the pie before, right? So you have your life, Tony calls it's the wheel, right?
Yeah.
The wheel of life, right? So if your wheel gets too out of balance, it doesn't turn properly.
Got it.
Right? So, the great example is somebody gets a new job at a startup and they're working 70 hours a week, and then their relationship starts suffering, right? And I've personally known people have gotten divorced over one of them working too much, right? So, and, ask anybody who's an elite performer, like an athlete, a tennis grade, a gymnastics, elite level, gold medal, right? They miss their childhood. They miss spending time with friends. Same thing with actors and actresses who are pursuing Hollywood. Same thing, right?
Yeah, I can agree.
So all I'm saying is if you want to do that, just be okay that you're giving up the other stuff. Because it's and don't let me install a limiting belief here, but
no, that's fine.
It's gonna be difficult, I'll say, to be an elite performer in every area of your life all the time.
Yeah.
Right? So all I'm asking is for you to consider, okay, if you want that, there is a downside, potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
Right? So this gets back to, the same thing, which is, why do you want that?
Got it. So why do I want that? Why do I want to be a top
Yeah.
game designer?
Yeah.
I want to be a top game designer because I believe I'm closest to solving this problem than a lot of people. I want to
Which problem?
the free to play problem.
You have to explain that to me.
I want to be a top game designer because I feel close to cracking the code.
Okay.
I didn't mean to be a game designer. I may have chosen it many times every day. I guess I chose it. I guess I'm always choosing to do it. But then sometimes I feel like it chose me. Sometimes I feel like I need to see it to fruition.
Yeah.
I know that David Data says a man should never expect anything to end, right? That,
Yeah.
there'll never be a time. But for some reason, I feel like there would be a time, that there may come a time where I can finally lay down the perfect free-to-play game design, the perfect game design that would help many people, the company, the finances, the targets, the vitals that we'd like to hit, that I can actually accomplish it. I can actually do what's very, very hard to do, and I'm very close to that. And bring myself that financial freedom, bring myself the feeling of accomplishment in that area, a feeling of satisfaction. I mean, I've had success. One time I asked you, you said, haven't you made a top grossing game before? And I said, yeah. And you're like, are you any happier? And I was like, no. So it's kind of, it's hard to say, but I think the clearest answer I can give is I want to be a top grossing game designer because I want to be a top game designer because I want to fulfill the skill that has either I've chose or has chosen me. I can't really say, but people are constantly reaching out to me for answers. And the game design goes beyond just video games. It goes on to real world teams, people with problems, people who have, or wives have cancer, people who have children, people who have, a life to live, and it's this whole industry. People make big mistakes, and I feel like I can help correct those, or I can lend service in some way. I was watching a show on a veterinarian. This guy was going around helping people's animals. It was a very big deal. And in some ways I can relate because people have their own little animals, their little games and things like that. So it has its need.
Okay.
So
let's just try something.
Okay.
So I'm happy, close your eyes. And I want you to take it out of the context of video games. So my request for these states that I'm going to invite you to associate with them in a broader and deeper way than just video games. Okay? So I want you to connect with your own sense of freedom. And you talk about financial freedom, but I'm abstracting at a level for you and just saying freedom. And just let me know when you have a sense of your own freedom and what that feels like to be free.
Okay, I got it.
Okay? And then just add in whatever way is appropriate a sense of accomplishment into that.
Okay.
Add in fulfillment.
Okay.
And add in service, so being of service to others.
Okay.
And now, in whatever way is appropriate, I want you to just imagine all of the potential careers in front of you. That might be like a million little postage stamps or however you want to represent that in your mind. But you could be everything from a garbage man to a bridge inspector to a slot machine technician to a video game designer to a dog trainer to a horticulturist. You get the story, right? And from this place of these feelings of freedom, accomplishment, fulfillment, and service, I want you to recognize that there's literally thousands of different ways that you could be experiencing these as you give your gift to the world. And some of those things, whether you're thinking about them visually or you're talking to yourself about them, some of them will make no sense to you and they will be in the background, right? Like you may not ever have a reason or desire to be a bridge inspector, for example. Now, if it's still true that video games is one of the ways you plan to do this in this lifetime, then that might move into the foreground and some other things might too, right? Talk about music and writing and other creative pursuits, and there's probably other things that you hadn't even thought of or I haven't heard about. And when you get a sense that maybe there's 3, 4, 5, 10, 1, however many things that could fulfill these things plus other values that are important to you, just let me know. When you get a sense that, you know, there are a number of different ways that I could be giving this gift and experiencing these feelings. And by the way, I would add in a sense of belonging to this as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, you already added it.
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, you know, what's most in the foreground for you when you're considering it this way?
It's video game design.
Yeah. So, good thing to know. And now, I want you to imagine seeing that video game design and just focusing on that movie of Paul doing that and bringing these values into it. And allow the sense of accomplishment to represent what would come from being the best or from being elite. Because the reality is these things can happen whether you're elite or not. Now, you may still want to choose to do that, but just in a disassociated way, first see it over there and see what that looks like. It's sort of a way of panning out and seeing that, you know, Paul is taking the values that are important to him into doing it, so that he doesn't get to the end of it and say, well, gee, that was a waste of 3 years, or I still don't feel better.
Yeah.
So that whether he has that top selling game or not, he has still had the chance to take a crack at cracking the code. He's had a sense of freedom, a sense of accomplishment, fulfillment, and he's been of service during that time. So that even if the game ends up going in the bit bucket again, that Paul's had a good run of it.
Yeah.
So go ahead and step into that and take this feeling with you and notice how it transforms as you go through the movie of your life through your own eyes. Knowing that you can be free even when people are making requests of you. That you can feel a sense of accomplishment whether you are performing at your highest level or 1 or 2 notches down. That you can continue to build your skill and realize that, and you can be of service to others. So again, if somebody makes a request of you, instead of maybe that causing anxiety, it could be, oh, this is a request for service. It's like you walk into McDonald's, how can I help you today? Right?
Yeah.
They're empty words when they're spoken that way, but if it really is true, like I'm really here to be of service to this community, to this industry, how does that feel moment by moment?
Feels good.
And now I'll invite you to pan out a little bit because you're going to have a life during this time. You're going to be feeding yourself and you're going to be belonging to things other than just the video game industry. And you'll be having time outside running, you'll be, spending time with family, dating, whatever it is. And so allow that to integrate into the movie so that you can be a lead and you can still have a life. I've read several articles on Jeff Bezos. I'm sure you know who he is. The CEO of Amazon, the world's richest man. And he goes home and he has dinner with his family every night. I understand that even Steve Jobs did that as well. I'm sure he turned on his laptop after hours, but other important things in their lives stayed important. And so I will invite you to make that part of this movie as well. And now, having experienced this, what have you learned so far?
I think I'm learning just through this session here that I'm not so much worn out as I thought I was from this perspective on game design. It's so much that my perspective was shifting, and that the idea of service and that the idea of purpose and fulfillment is a much stronger belief than wherever I was before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me add a couple of learnings that I heard in there, and you can correct me if they're wrong, but we compared and contrasted video game design to a lot of other possibilities, and it still popped out.
Yeah.
As the one, at least the one for now. The other thing is that things like service are a very good antidote to perfectionism. So if I go into a job interview, for example, and I go in from a place of I need to be perfect or I'm not getting this job, that puts a lot of stress on me.
Yeah.
If I go on and I say, how can I help you? How can I be of service to you? Then if they say no, then it just means they don't need the service, right? And so allow that to inform the part of you that believes you need to be a lead. I'm all for people operating at peak performance, but I want them to do it from a place of desire rather than stress.
Yeah.
A want to rather than have to.
I want to.
Right. Think of a great basketball player. You can tell the people love the game because they just go out there and they have fun.
Yeah.
And that's different than I got to score 50 points or they, right.
Yeah.
So the question is then, what will you do with what you've learned today? So let's take it back to practical. What will you do tomorrow and over the next week, or in the short term? How will that inform what you're going to do differently?
Well, I want to love what I fucking do,
Yeah. And what would help you love what you fucking do?
I guess.
What would you need to notice, appreciate, or believe while you're doing it?
I'm noticing that the day that is going and leaving me, the sun setting, and all the things that I may feel like I'm missing out on are justifiably missed for what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That I am not at the beach. I am not pursuing a romantic relationship at this time. this particular moment, I'm not hanging out with friends, that I'm working towards this video game, and it's not stupid. It's actually really worthwhile, and I love it.
And I'm willing to bet that it's about more than just this video game.
It is.
Because what I've heard earlier in your session was that this is really about
Service.
you helping the industry out.
Yeah.
If you guys are interested in talking to Dan Ross, I'll put his link in the description. He's extremely good at talking to people about accomplishing visions, any kind of thing that you could use in help as far as like getting your life on track, losing weight, beating an old habit, overcoming a fear, especially in this time when we're dealing with lockdown, some quarantines, shelter in place. He does do Skype calls, he does do Zoom, so he's available to help keep your productivity at a higher level, to help take your life to the next level. And I'm just giving him a shout out just because he's such a good friend of mine, and I really do appreciate his work. So if you're interested in him, hit him up. Stay tuned for the next episode. Will be the last of all of this series, part 3. I was able to congregate all of the videos into 3 parts, so I will be unveiling if I was able to come up with a game that's as good or better than Adventure Carminus. All right, guys, thank you. Later.